So you want concavity in your static mesh collision, and as many of us who have used Unreal know, when you try to do something like this, where you have this nice curvature on the interior, you end up with something like this, with your collision mesh cutting across your concave static mesh. Now, this actually didn't bother me so much. What really bugged me was this. Why couldn't you use the corners I defined? And no matter how I tried to get the interpreter to look at this, no matter how I improved the precision, it still had trouble with these corners. I didn't mind so much that it wasn't following my exact edges and vertices, because the graph theory and trig, it'll tell us that it still is going to give us the same result even if these get transposed and swapped around. That's fine. But what I really wanted was these corners to be exact. And then I also, as a secondary result, really wanted that curvature at the end. So I'm going to walk through how I managed to do this. I am using Blender for this, and really, I'm just going to create a brand new project. First off, a couple of control things. Let's say you accidentally manage to move your cursor by holding Shift and right-click. You do want this cursor set at the origin, so I'm going to right-click, hit Snap, and then make sure the cursor is at the world origin. Perfect. Now, I'm going to delete the light fixture here. I'm going to delete the camera fixture here, and we're just going to use this base level project for everything that we need. First thing I like to do is I like to delete the material. We're not going to want to import this, and if you do import it, it's not going to hurt anything. You'll just notice that you'll have some clutter in your project. So I'm going to delete that. Now we're going to edit the general dimensions of this, and I'm going to do that by scaling this cube to be 4 times its width, and I'm also going to scale it in the Z direction by 0.2. I'm building a 2D game, so I like to give it a little bit of thickness just to help with the collisions. It's a personal preference. I like it to be a little thick. It also helps me adjust it, see what it's doing, and all that in the world. So we're going to move this in the Y direction by 6 meters. Now, how did I get that number? I'm using these major grid lines to sort of guide my approach here. I am aligning this directly with that major grid line. When you start experimenting with this, you might start experimenting with, say, a longer scale, in which case you're going to want to align, change your Y alignment here. Or if you are changing the degrees of resolution, you may end up wanting to change your width, and so on and so forth. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do in order to get everything to play nicely in the end. So feel free to experiment with this. Like I said, in my case, 9 degrees, and this sort of setup was the perfect, the magic sort of setup for me. So now that we have this where we want it, we're going to select this, and we're going to set the origin to the 3D cursor. Remember, we snap the 3D cursor to the world origin. Let's see, is there even an opportunity? Yeah, see, it doesn't allow us to set this to the origin to the world center, so that's why we snap the cursor to the world center first. All right, now, what we'll notice is this is able to now rotate around that world center. That's exactly what we want. So we're going to set this to 0. We're going to copy and paste this guy. I'm highlighting up here, hitting Control-C, then Control-V, and you'll notice we have a new cube. I'm going to change this guy to 9 degrees. And that's on the Z-axis. You'll want to make sure that you are doing this on the Z-axis, because if you don't, you'll end up with sort of fans going this way and that way, and you want this to look like a fan on the planar axis, so on the plane of interest here. I'm going to then copy and paste this guy again, and we're just going to go in the -9 direction. It really doesn't matter which cube you're sending in which direction, so long as you have this sort of fan-shaped structure here, okay? Now, you might be tempted to do this for your entire wedge. Do not. There is a reason for that. You want to take advantage of Unreal being able to just put collision on a single wedge, so you're actually going to create the entire fan in Unreal. We're just creating the wedges here. Okay, so we're going to select all of these, and you're going to hit Control-J. Now, you'll notice nothing happened. The reason nothing happened is because my cursor was not over the viewport. This took me worlds to figure out what was happening here. So I want to hover over the viewport with all of these selected, and then hit Control-J. You'll notice everything combines into a single cube. I can't tell you how much frustration that ended up giving me. I am very new to Blender, so this was an experiment in patience for me. Now that we have our single cube shape, it's called cube. This is obviously not a cube. I like to turn on X-ray. It lets me see what's going on here. What we want to take the intersection here of these faces, and that is going to give us the face vertices of our wedge. We're going to go into edit mode, go into options, auto merge, and I want to split edges and faces. And that's not going to do anything as is. But here, what we're going to do is we're going to just select everybody here. Now, you want to make sure that your cursor is over the viewport. Do not touch your mouse. You don't want to move this, okay? So you're just going to hit G, Z, 0, and enter. Boom. And what that did is that created the vertices that we see here. These are going to be our face vertices. And we're going to select all of these guys, and we're going to do the same thing. Hover over the viewport, do not move your mouse, G, Z, 0, enter. All right, now we have our face vertices, and we have our tail vertices. Fantastic. So we're just going to delete everything else. And here, we'll use Shift. We'll take advantage of Shift. delete vertices, and there we go. This is going to be our wedge. So next thing we want to do is we want to create some faces. I'm going to highlight these 4 vertices. I'm going to hit F. Then I'm going to highlight these 4 vertices. I'm going to hit F. And I'm going to highlight these 4 vertices, hit F. And using shift magic, I'm going to hit F. And if you recall, Unreal needs everything to be in triangle format, so that's fine. We'll just turn these into triangles. And in order to do that, you just want to make sure to, on every face, pick a vertex, and then pick an opposing vertex, and hit J. That's all you're going to have to do. All right, so we'll pick a vertex and an opposing vertex, and hit J. And J, hit J. Ooh, see, now I don't have a face here. I don't know how I missed this, but it gave me an error. Let's try that again. There we go. That is one thing that you'll notice is it won't let you bisect the face if there is no face there. I am a little bit of a stickler for directionality. It does not matter here. So if you do these in any direction, it will not matter. You're going to get the exact same result no matter what. Okay, perfect. There we go. There is our wedge. And I got rid of the material, so that's good. All right, now back in object mode. One thing you'll notice, you may be able to see it, you may not be able to see it, but this actually looks like it's concave, or like this has this doesn't look quite right. But I'm gonna leave it as is because I want to show you what it's gonna look like in Unreal if you mess this part up. So what we're gonna do here is we want to create our collision channel. So I'm just gonna do a copy and paste our cube. We want it to be right on top of our original cube. And obviously this is not a cube, this is a wedge, but I'm just gonna leave it named cube. You can name it whatever you want. What you care about is that you create the channel UCX underscore, and it needs to match the same name as your original shape, okay? Now, Unreal is going to look for this UCX cube, and it is going to apply that as collision when you try to import it. Okay, so that is what we ended up doing here for creating our wedge, and I'm just going to, oh, actually, I am going to save this where it's supposed to be saved, and I'm just going to save this as, I don't know, temp wedge. Sure. Okay, there we go. And I am going to export this as an FBX. Now I'm going to show you some errors here that you may run into. So in my project, I'm going to go to Unreal, I'm going to go to my project, I'm going to go to content, and I'm just going to put it in a folder that I created specifically for this. I'm going to save it, and there are 2 major errors that I'm looking for here. So if I export this as FBX, and I go back to my project, it's going to tell me, hey, I found something. So I'm going to import this. You want to make sure that you do not generate missing collisions. Sometimes, if you have this checked, it still will, even though it detects that you have a collision channel, it will still attempt to do it. I've had this problem. So just leave that unchecked, and we're going to import all. Now, I just got this error on my other monitor that says no smoothing group information was found in this FBX scene. As far as I can tell, this should not impact, and from my research, this should not impact your wedge, but I wanted to research how to fix this. Okay, so really, all that needs to happen is when you do your export, and you go to FBX, and we have that, you want to go to geometry, and instead of normals only, you want to change this to face, and then export your project. That will get rid of that error for you, okay? And I'll show you how that works in just a second, because we're going to want to re-export this. So if I go to temp wedge and I take a look at this, you're going to notice something doesn't look right. This does not look right, and the reason that this doesn't look right is because we didn't recalculate the faces of this. Okay, so I wanted to show what this will look like if you forgot to do that. It's pretty simple. I'm actually going to get rid of my UCX cube because I'm not sure if this affects the collision or not, so I'm just going to make sure that I fix it on the cube and then recopy my collision channel. So I need to select the cube, then go into, I believe I need to be in edit mode, Shift N, there we go, and recalculate normal should pop up. So all I did here was I just hit Shift N, and that should recalculate all of the faces of this, and you should be good at that point. Going back into object mode, if I copy and paste this cube, UCX cube. And you'll even notice here, this looks different, right? This looks like it should. It no longer looks like it's concave on the inside. So if we go to this and we just export this guy, FBX, and I'm just gonna name this temp wedge 2, and make sure that my geometry is face here, okay? And if we export this, go back here. Now I'm gonna clear this error, all right? And you'll notice it just auto-detected this. So if I import, make sure generate missing collisions is unchecked, import, no error, so that's great. That's because we changed the geometry to face. And if we go and take a look at our wedge, boom, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, so now the piece de resistance, if we go to show our simple collision, look at that. That is just as precise and clean as it gets. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. All right, Final step is to turn this into our targeting fan. I want to put this somewhere I know. I'm just kind of putting it in a location that's easy for me to kind of get around. Up our camera speed a little bit. Okay. Boom. All right. Now, what we want to do here, I personally want this to be about 54 degrees of angle, and I want the edges of the middle two to be pointing directly north, or directly in one of the cardinal directions. It really doesn't matter which. In this case, it just happens to be north, but you'll notice that edge of the wedge right there is perfectly in front of my character. Play around with it, see if the angles are correct. You now know how to formulate the vertices for this, so you can play around with the angles, you can play around with the width, the direction, all that good stuff. So all I'm going to do is copy and paste and change. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I am going to change this rotation to 4.5 degrees. Now this is pointing direct in a cardinal direction because of the way that I've computed this. And we're going to copy and paste that guy. We're going to rotate that to 13.5 degrees. You see what we're doing here. And we're going to copy paste that guy, 22.5. Boom. Look at that. Copy paste. And we're going to change that to negative 4.5. Paste, change that to negative 13.5. You'll notice these are in increments of my 9 degrees that I was playing with earlier, right? All right, and then copy paste that, and negative 22.5. Perfect. There is my targeting wedge. And I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to go to Actor, Merge Actors, and Merge. And I'm just going to name this something. I'm going to put this somewhere nice. I'll put it in my new folder. Terrible practice here. Don't be like me. And I'm just going to save it as you can obviously name this something useful. All right. And there is our merge static mesh. Now, if we go into this, you're going to notice this is kind of big. You can play around with that. I'm just going to scale this in Unreal. But here is the beauty of this. If we go to show and simple collision, look at that. Oh, look at that. It's gorgeous. Now, you may notice that some of these may have swapped directions. So in other words, this guy swapped directions, whereas this guy is over here. It's fine. That is totally fine. Trig and graph theory tells us that this is going to do what it needs to do, regardless of which direction that is facing. So we're good there. What I care about, obviously, my corners are nice and crisp, and look at that concavity. Look at that. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. I like to change this to wireframe material. That's a personal preference. You can change this to whatever material you want. Also, this will now work with all of your collision channels, all that good stuff. Now, as a final step, what you can do is wrap this in basically just a scene component, make this subordinate to it, put that wherever you want the center to be, and because we put the pivot point back here a little ways, when we rotate that target mesh transform, look at that. It stays off of our character. It gives us that nice targeting reticle, that nice area outside of the character, and we don't risk causing impact with our actual pawn. So yeah, I hope this was useful, and happy unreeling.